Welcome. Hey, folks. Let's ring a bell. We're going to get things started here. My name is Jason Murphy, and this is Rebel Dharma Wednesday night. Glad you guys are here. Thanks for attending. Those of you in the room, those of you on Zoom, those of you in future on YouTube. Where to begin? There'll be a few more people still kind of popping in. Anyone new to the group that wants to introduce themselves just by saying your name and what kind of brings you here? If you're in the Zoom, you can raise your hand or just unmute yourself, or if you're in the room, speak up.
Sure, I'll start. Andrew, it's my first time here. Friend Gordon brought me here. Said he's got a few benefits from it, so I'll give it a try.
Awesome. Hey, Tyler, could you do me a favor and kind of pull that TV out? Travis. Damn it. Just kind of pull it out and you'll turn it. There we go. Like that. Awesome. Sorry, Travis. I was telling myself, oh, his name's Tyler. No, it's Travis. All right. Thank you, Travis. So I was going through a bit of a series of the Four Noble Truths, and then my friend Stephanie Tate, while I was on retreat, was talking also about wise view or right view. So we were kind of moving into the fourth noble truth, and then starting to kind of unpack each of the Eightfold Path. And I'll kind of back up a little bit today and go through the list known as the Eightfold Path. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the next kind of aspect of this list known as intention. So it's kind of wise intention. And we'll just kind of keep moving through the list. One of the convenient things about Buddhism is that about maybe 500-600 years after the Buddha died, there's a very well-known configuration known as the Visuddhimagga. The Visuddhimagga is basically this, supposedly enlightened student of the Buddha. I mean, several hundred years later, but a very scholarly monk kind of took all of the teachings that had been gathered and then created a kind of systematic teaching tool known as the Visuddhimagga, which is basically what we call now in Western and contemporary Buddhism. This is the teachings of the Buddha, and they're set off in several lists. So he kind of took it from a systemic oral tradition into a kind of written, kind of linear tradition. So makes it user friendly. It's like a study guide. So anyway, we'll get back to that. But so let's meditate. So in order to meditate, you really don't need to do much other than bring your attention kind of inward. We don't have to sit in any particular way. There's some suggestions, of course. Sitting, cross-legged can be useful, but it's not necessary. And there's cushions and pillows available. It is helpful whether you're sitting on a chair or on a cushion to have your back upright, to not be too kind of slumped over. And this really just also allows you to open up the kind of the diaphragm and to have some ease in your upper body. It's also helpful to allow the eyes to close. It's not necessary to close your eyes. You can have your eyes open, but shutting off one of the sense doors really allows more kind of inward focus. So that's a suggestion. And let's just settle in. Let's just, kind of do a mental check-in even, just arriving here. And just doing a mental check-in, like, how was your day? Kind of, how was my day? Was it stressful? Was it easeful? Was there challenges? Was there insights? Was there anything left over? Maybe something you're carrying in your body, some tension. And just the invitation is to really let that go. Or maybe another easier way to think about that would be to let that be. Just let it be in the past. Let it be. As we aim the attention just on what's happening here in the mind, here in the body, here in the comings and goings of sound. And perhaps setting some small intention for the next 20 minutes. What would be an intention that you would set for yourself? Perhaps it's returning to the present moment with kindness every time you recognize that it wanders off, the attention. Just hearing the bell. And resting the attention on some experience that's happening here that it can be relied upon. So the comings and goings of sound, or the breath rising and falling, or the different sensations of the body, kind of sweeping through the body, head to feet, feet to head. For the purpose of this meditation, there's nothing worth thinking. Of course, it can be helpful to give the mind a job and a simple instruction is breathing in, calming the mind, breathing out, relaxing the body. You can use these two words, calm and relax, connected to the in-breath and the out-breath. Breathing in, calm. Breathing out, relax. Breathing in, calming the mind. Breathing out, relaxing the body. Breathing in, calm. Breathing out, relax. The invitation is to allow these two words to be like a whisper in the mind. We start to recognize that perhaps the attention has wandered off. It's useful to just take a moment and acknowledge where it's gone, future or past, thinking, planning, remembering, kind of disconnecting from whatever the story might be, and then using the simple phrases, calm or relax, as a way to reconnect to this present time experience. once we've established some collecting of attention, some mindfulness of this present time experience, can begin to expand out to different processes that are happening here. Thinking, sensations, what are called the 6 sense doors. Just noticing the intake of what can be seen or heard, smelled, sensations in the body. The mind itself, a sense door, perceiving, the encouragement is to just stay with what's happening here and now. Anything that would be considered future or past, and just setting that aside, recognizing it as thinking. Perhaps noticing the feeling tone of any of the 6 sense doors. Is there a sense of pleasant experience or unpleasant experience? Or neutral, neither pleasant or unpleasant? Present with each moment, each breath, each sound, each thought, each sensation in the body. Just noting. Not sure if anyone joined us after we began the meditation, but if so, welcome. I guess I just open up for any questions you have about meditation, about the instructions. I kind of gave some light instructions tonight. They weren't very detailed. Kind of did that on purpose. Most people here have been meditating, and even if you're kind of new, really to really keep it simple is usually my plan. We tend to overcomplicate most things. And but anyway, just to I'll open up for any questions about Buddhism in general. I would like to get to the topic of intention and give an overview of the Eightfold Path, but I want to honor any questions that you might have about the instruction or about Buddhism in general. Travis.
I'm just curious for you, like when you notice your loss in thought, you usually just say thinking, or do you go into like kind of more about like just like worrying, or do you get more specific, or do you just say thinking, like future, past?
Yeah. So the question was kind of for me in my own practice, which is basically how I teach. I teach what my practice is, or what my applications have been, because I only know what I do, right? But what do I do when I see that my mind has wandered off, or that kind of thing, right? Am I labeling it in a general way, thinking past, future? Am I getting more kind of minute, and the answer is it depends. It used to be that I don't know. I mean, there's been it's kind of a subtle shift, I think, that happens. And you've been on retreat, so you probably have been able to kind of notice that your relationship to your mind and thinking, you can either gain an awareness where you start to see it happening sooner. It's like it starts to slip away and you catch it, or you see it, and then perhaps you're less judgmental about it, which is, I think, useful. The more judgmental we are, that when we've recognized that we're thinking, or we're kind of distracted, the harder this is going to be. The harder we are on ourselves about it. And so I feel like, to answer your question, sometimes, generally, the way that I kind of work with it is, I'll be focusing on kind of the breath, or like the phrases like I was doing today, calm, relax, tend to help concentrate the mind. I don't know if you recognize that or not. That's why I gave that instruction to you. Because it's not just engaging in the breath itself, but you're also engaging the thinking mind in the action, right? In the present time experience. And so that helps to kind of create more of a foundation. And then at some point, I mean, it's different for different people. Sometimes I'll be kind of calm, relax, breath, calm, relax. And then I'll notice that there's a secondary thing that's happening where I'm thinking about something, and part of my mind is saying calm, relax, breath, calm, relax. And then there's another part of my mind that's like, oh, but you should really think about this, like this future thought or this past thought. And then instead of just kind of letting that happen, what I do often is I just recognize. That's where the recognition, thinking. And I'll just name it as thinking. I don't want to engage with it too much. And then I just come back to the calm, relaxed breath here, now. It wasn't always that way. It was often, and sometimes it's like that. And sometimes I'm lost in a story, and it's a future scenario or something. Like I was talking with Brian before about how I have this list of things that I was going to do today, and I didn't do all of them, but I did a few of them. And this didn't happen now, but this does happen at times, where then my mind will shift to the things that I didn't do. And sometimes there's a little bit of like, you're such a lazy bastard, like you just didn't do shit today, and then I'll notice, oh yeah, thinking, judgment. So the labeling is really an intervention to not just keep feeding the kind of discursive thinking or the kind of negative kind of thought pattern, right? So that's what I try to do. So that's what I try to see. And sometimes if it's kind of, if there is, and if I'm maybe sitting a retreat or something like that, I'll get a little more, just a little more minute in the description of what is happening. So it's not just thinking, but it's actually thinking future planning, right? Something like that, because it's very clear that that's what's happening. I'm not going to dissect it. I generally just go kind of, it's like you're looking at the road and then you see something kind of in the corner of your eye off the side of the road and you look for a second. That's kind of what I try to do with my mind. I just kind of look for a second, oh, thinking, and then back. And this is very helpful in just collecting the attention. Have you guys noticed that every fucking advertising company, everything is, in competition for your attention? I noticed this because I'm kind of on Instagram. And what I hate about Instagram now is that more and more it's ad after ad after ad, or this like, hey, or this, self-help guru, or this, this life coach that, and they're like, they're just vying for your attention, right? And, I'm on there too, and I'm putting little tidbits of, maybe we'll put this little clip of like, this is what's happening, right? Because, the idea is like, I want to attract people to come to this group. I want to attract people to, come to my website or start practicing. Actually, I don't even care if you come to this group or not, just start practicing. Meditation is beneficial. Therapy is useful, And so, anyway, in that distractive kind of mindset, right, of all day long, then we start to kind of focus in, and we're doing this practice, and we're countering that programming. And it's part of who we are. It's part of our evolutionary, kind of system, that we are able to kind of hold multiple things in our minds, and our attention goes in different directions. And there's all this talk of focus and attention, and it is useful. And as you can see, if anyone's done any kind of meditation for any period of time, when you're able to do what we just did for 25 minutes, you can start to see this kind of defragmentation of the mind, and there's a consolidation that can take place. And so I try to, kind of keep the blinders on a little bit. This is the concentration aspect of meditation, of this Vipassana practice. So keep the blinders on, keep a kind of a little bit of a narrow focus, but then, I'm not ignoring what other things are happening. The motorcycle starts, I notice hearing. Of course you notice hearing. Unless you're deaf, you're going to notice sounds, right? And even if you are deaf, you're going to notice sounds. They're just different sounds. So I've been told, there's like that kind of tinnitus, or there's even in silence, there is sound. So, and then same thing with, just all of the different things that we could do. What we're trying to be able to do is consolidate the mind enough so that when we do want to focus on something in particular, we can, And sometimes I go off on a tangent. But it was a great question. Yeah.
Kind of a follow-up.
Okay. Sure.
So that for the concentration, like the first 20 minutes, that are you saying even after, like in the last few minutes where we're kind of opening up to everything, how do you treat your mind? Are you still like kind of intervening when you notice thinking, or I don't know? I think every time I'm aware of a thought, it kind of stops immediately anyways. It's like,
right.
Bring away, I don't know.
Yeah. That's what I mean by the intervention. It's the intervention in, it's kind of like, I don't know, have you ever had like a bad dream? like a nightmare or whatever? Have you ever had a nightmare where like you were being like chased or something like that? You ever had one of those?
Yeah.
Like, and it tends to cause stress or anxiety and fear. And I don't know if you notice this or not, but that if you consciously turn to face whatever it is in your dream, it disappears very often, or it'll kill you, and then you wake up. But more often than not, it's the turning to face, which is, with the Buddha gave this kind of analogy and talking about Mara and his relationship with Mara all the time, which I see you, Mara, is also like, I see you fear, I see you anxiety, I see you depression, I see you obsessive thought about the future, I see you doubt, all of what we call the hindrances. And so what we're learning to do is to stay focused on a particular object, and then recognize, thinking, but not get too much into it, but just recognize it as thinking. Just like recognize the thing that just right off your visual kind of your peripheral or whatever. If you're driving, right, you're going to kind of be aware of it, but you're not going to totally look at it and stare at it, because then you're not seeing what's in front of you and you could crash, right? So the same thing that we're doing with meditation. So yeah, it's a subtle intervention. And I think I didn't mean to say, if this is the way you heard it, Travis, that 20 minutes this is kind of what we did tonight, is what I think you're referring to. For 20 minutes of, a pretty narrow focus, calm, relax. And then I kind of opened up about the last 5 or 8 minutes to more of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Is that kind of what you're saying? That's what you experienced? Yeah. And for some people, well, what I often do is I just kind of open and then let go of any instructions and just rest in awareness. This is just the way I was taught. This is also just the way I kind of, I don't know, this is just the way I do it. And I think a lot, it's almost like rewarding myself for being able to stay focused. Because when you can just kind of open and just let it all in, and you're not, then you're also consolidated more. So people that are brand new to meditation, this is all going to listen like, what? Like, how are you even aware that that's happening? Well, over time, you gain awareness of these kind of little nuances, and then you just become aware of it, and then you can experiment too. This is, find out what works best for you. For some people, I'll say, let go of the instructions, and people freak out. They're like, what? Like, let go of the instructions? Let go of the breath? I can't do that. And they'll kind of grasp back to the breath. That's okay. That's okay to do that too. It's all right. And some people are like, any kind of instruction just kind of it doesn't really resonate with me. And I like to just kind of be open in awareness. Great. Be open in awareness. The trick here is when you're open in awareness, it's not about spacing out, right? I can't tell you how many people I work with or how many people I know that have been like, oh yeah, I totally meditate. Oh, cool. And I ask them a question like you just asked me, and they'll be like, well, I just kind of rest in, like an open awareness, okay, cool. And then what do you experience? Well, I usually just kind of like, I'm just kind of, I don't know, like I kind of space out, or I like lose myself or something like that. That I get that. I kind of get that one a lot. I lose myself. With that, and I'm not disrespectful to the person. I usually am just like, yeah, well, that sounds, that's a form of relaxation. And, you might want to try this if I'm giving them some kind of instruction, right? But that usually means I'm letting my mind take control. I'm letting it just kind of run itself. I'm not having the intention of attention, and so that's what we're really trying to do here. This is what this talk is about. It's about developing an intention of attention, right? Then there's more levels of intention, but that I think is in the meditative instruction. That's what we're really trying to do. Develop an intention. So the intention is, okay, the mind may wander off. Yes, of course it's going to wander off. I've been doing this shit for close to 30 years. My mind still wanders off. It just did. When I set out future planning, that happened, but I don't have a lot of problems about it. I used to go catch myself 5 minutes into, what's called papancha, like a thought that leads to another thought, that leads to a third thought, and then it's just kind of expanding out into larger and larger thoughts. This is useful when we're sitting at our desk, or when we're trying to do homework, or when we're, jotting down new ideas, or we're trying to brainstorm or whatever. Not so useful when you're in meditation, right? And we have to train the mind to not do that. And so, and this is useful because it then gives us calm, relax, gives us ease. It gives us a reprieve from the onslaught of our minds. And then this is what people talk about as some of the benefits of meditation. And it actually allows us to think more efficiently. So, yes, intention, attention. And, and then experiment with it. You've been doing this long enough. You've been kind of, you're still fairly new, right? But you've been really giving attention, right? You've set an intention to really practice. And now you're starting to hopefully see some of the, right? Are you seeing some of the benefits, some of the nuances that maybe you didn't see before?
Yeah, for sure.
Good. Yeah. I can hear in your questioning that there's been some insight, some understanding, and this, comes incrementally over time, so good for you. And when in the beginning, it's like, I don't know. Sometimes for some people, it's probably like, it could just be amazing right away. I don't know. Sometimes I project because my mind is like, I had a really great experience the first few times I meditated. And then it was like horrible for like 6 or 8 months. And I just kept doing it. I don't know why. I guess because I felt like I was on mushrooms those first couple of times. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. And then I was like chasing the high of early meditative experiences, But it got hard. And it will get hard. But the intention to place the attention in this present time experience, here and now process is it's vital. Yeah. All right, so maybe I'll open up for some more questions in a bit, but I want to just kind of, since I started to turn towards talking about intention. So thanks for the lead. So let me just go over, for those of you who maybe it's your first time or you haven't been here in a while, just to go over some of the what I've been talking about, the Four Noble Truths, right, or the kind of foundational teachings of the Buddha. And the Four Noble Truths are: there is suffering in this world. There is a cause to the suffering, which basically is clinging, attachment, what we might call selfish or self-centered clinging. And then the third noble truth is that there is, and these are noble because they can be experienced, and they rise our nobility. They are ennobling. They are the four ennobling truths, because they allow us to move from just this kind of repetitive, zombie-like, addictive, mentality, to being able to kind of see and be more clear. So that's ennobling. The fourth noble truth, so the third noble truth is that there can be an end to suffering. That there can be a cessation of the grasping, the clinging, the kind of addictive, compulsive, repetitive nature of our kind of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. This can come to an end. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, right? A few weeks ago, we were talking, I said that there's what's called, so the word for cessation or liberation or enlightenment is nibbana. And nibbana means to extinguish the flame. So as if we were on fire, suffering was ourselves on fire. This practice is cooling and extinguishing of the flame. And there's little nibbanas and there's big nibbanas. So there's little nibbanas, which are these moments of clarity that we have, these moments of calm, peace, ease. Oh yeah, I'm in line. I had a, just on this recent retreat, I, went for a hike and I went out in nature and just spent kind of the day down by this. I don't know if you guys went down by the creek, but I went to, hike down by this little creek, and it was like the sun was, I was just open to seeing and being with all of what was happening. I don't know what's going on there.
It's low battery.
Oh, all right. Bummer. Well, sorry, you guys won't be able to see. They can't see you anymore. Anyway, and there was this kind of afternoon of kind of blissful ease. And I didn't really even want to go back to the meditation hall or see other people. I was just like there. And then, eventually it passed, it was maybe what one could call a little nibbana, And these can be experienced regularly, daily, weekly, monthly. And then the kind of what Buddhadasa Bhikkhu called the big nibbana is like a full ending of suffering, right? Cessation of suffering. So the fourth noble truth is basically the path leading to the end of suffering. So he's like, okay, so this is the kind of, here's the, the scaffolding, here's the outline, and now here's the prescription, here's how to do it, right? And then the first step along the path is really what's called wise understanding, or right view. Sometimes it's called wise view, wise understanding, right view. And this is kind of like where there's a little bit of faith necessary, because there's some things we're not going to fully understand in the beginning, right? Like karma and rebirth. There's some things we're not going to fully understand, that like even talking about the nuance of the mind in the beginning, we're not necessarily going to be able to understand that. You might to some degree, right? But the faith, or really the confidence, or the verifiable faith, not blind faith. And so one of the things I love about Buddhism isn't saying, believe exactly what the teacher is saying as truth. The Buddha is saying, and within Buddhism, at least particularly early Buddhism, the teaching is really foundational around see for yourself if these things are true. Practice, have the intention of attention, the intention of renunciation, the intention to focus, and live in a way that, is going to be, hopefully reducing suffering, and just see if it's true. And if it's not true, then maybe find something else, figure something else out. And that's that kind of willingness or confidence that gains over time. So, and we don't have to buy rebirth and karma. We don't have to buy the whole thing. You don't have to buy anything. Matter of fact, that's why it's free. There's no membership. I mean, there's some cool t-shirts, but also your choice. So the intention in the beginning is to give it a try. And so many people don't even, they maybe know, there's tons of people that know the psychological benefits, the spiritual benefits, the medical benefits of meditation. Has been kind of, we've been talking about it for decades now, been proven for decades now. We've known about it from a Buddhist perspective for 2,560 years, but yet it's, it's challenging. because there's so much vying for our attention that wants to keep us asleep. You know. So wise view is kind of saying, like, okay, I recognize these Four Noble Truths. I recognize that there's some things here that's not quite right, and I'm willing to kind of give it a try. Now, the next level, well, I'll just read through all of them, right? So the 8 are wise view, wise intention, wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood, wise effort, wise mindfulness, wise concentration, and then back to wise view again. And so the way that the Buddha really kind of broke these down is broke them down into 3 main baskets, which is the way I like to kind of view them. Because I like to keep things simple. And the first basket is actually around kind of ethical integrity. So this idea of kind of wise effort, wise action, right? Wise livelihood. So this kind of, let's look at how are we acting in the world, and how is that causing suffering not only to ourselves, but how is that suffering spilling out? The second piece is samadhi. So it's basically like the meditative. Now that we've kind of, okay, I recognize that, I'm thinking or acting in ways that are actually harmful to myself or to others, I'm going to learn to kind of meditate and, kind of clear the path a little bit. Have some interventions like we're doing now, some of these meditative interventions. So to learn to concentrate the mind, and then utilizing kind of mindfulness and concentration and wisdom and effort all together, to then lead to the third basket, which is called panya, which means wisdom. And the wisdom that arises is really a deeper understanding of wise view of the Four Noble Truths, of karma, of rebirth, of this not self-experience. I had a teacher several years into practice. His name was Robert Hall. He was a psychiatrist. He was a retired psychiatrist, and he would trained with Fritz Perls, who was like a very well-known kind of early psychiatrist, and he was a really gifted teacher. And he just came out, and it was like dark, and we were all kind of deep in a meditative experience. And he just kind of said, "Have you figured it out yet? Have you figured it out?" And I was like, "Absolutely not," in my mind, And he was like, "We're not our thoughts. We're not our feelings. Have you figured that out?" And it was like a moment where, oh yeah, I see that now. I've been doing battle with my thoughts and my feelings for all these days. And it was just one of those moments where it's like, oh, there's a deeper level of experiential wisdom that comes, where I could see that, and it helped me have a little bit of separation. Oh yeah, these thoughts are coming and going, and I don't know where they came from, and I don't know where they're going, but they're not me. I'm still here, quote unquote. Yeah, and these thoughts are coming and going and looping, and same with the emotions. They're coming, they're going. I'm having multiple of them a day. Am I each one of them? Individually, collectively, separately? And just watching the passing parade. And that's what I think the Buddha is pointing to. And this was, a glimpse that I had. I was in this moment. And I know that we all can have that, Any thoughts or questions just about anything that I've said so far before I take another little dive? Please, Michael.
Thanks, Jason. Just reflecting on, like, you'd mentioned, like, keeping things simple. And, you know, lately I find that to be a skillful way to try to reflect on things, because I can tend to overcomplicate things. I definitely fall into that area sometimes. And, like, not being our thoughts, like there was a teacher who had said, you know, the body is like a mountain, and um, our mind is like the weather.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Always changing, coming and going. And then, you know, one more reflection that I heard from a teacher is, you know, just to kind of be the witness, you know, like to be the observer. And you talked about that, and I don't know, it's just things like that that I just find I like come back to and are useful to reflect on and try to use. So thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Anything else? Clarity on things I've said so far? Sorry that I don't know what happened there. All right. All right. Well, I'll just kind of continue on with kind of breaking down intention a little bit more. And then basically I'll go through kind of each of these, and we'll talk a bit about this, kind of right view and ethical integrity and different aspects of wisdom. I feel like intention is useful because it's something that we can fine tune. We can begin to be more mindful of. Right? And so I guess I want to kind of frame this around karma. And so here's a teaching from the Buddha. This is found in the what's called Anguttara Nikaya, which is a discourse from the Buddha. Beings are owners of their own karma, heirs of their karma, born of their karma, related to their karma, and supported by their karma. Whatever karma they do, for good or for ill, of that they are the heirs. So Buddhism offers us a challenge. Like, is it possible to live a life with no suffering? This is the challenge. One of the most direct ways to bring ease or happiness is our mindfulness and the investigation of our intentions. So there's a few different ways to kind of look at our intentions. Our intentions are our karma. Right? The intentions are the forerunners of the mind. So if you, and this is part of the maybe an experiment to try to do, to get up each morning and to set an intention for the day, and then like use that as a barometer. And I don't know, something like, I'll try to not be reactive today. My intention is to not be reactive today, something like that, right? And then allow that to be kind of a foundation that, it's something that you can touch on, not with judgment, but just as a guidance, right? Where my intention is to, be kind to myself today, and, it could be even as simple as, my intention is to, really be productive today. So, there's different ways in which we can kind of look at this. Right? So our intentions create a mind that is either at ease or is frustrated and confused. So with kind of no intention, if we're just kind of, seeking, I don't know, desire, if we're just kind of seeking gratification throughout the day, and there's not a lot of intention, we're really just kind of base animals. I don't know if you noticed that or not. We can get there, right, pretty easily. And so setting intention and then increasing with mindfulness really helps us to kind of broaden that experience, you know. So our intentions are the seeds of our thoughts and our actions. And paying attention to our intentions, like I was saying before, then we can create favorable outcomes, right? So this is that play between having the intention of attention. And that means like setting some intention and then giving attention to what is happening throughout the day. And then our checking in, doing a body scan, or just, I like to use just some very simple, like stop, take a breath, observe what's happening in your body, in your mind, and proceed with awareness. You don't need to have a sit cross-legged oming for 25 minutes. Really, that takes 3 breaths, you know, can be useful. That's one way to kind of think about it. Yeah. So our awareness can be like guards at the gate, right? Being aware of our intentions can lead us into right action, you know, being non-harming at its base, you know, so starting to have some intentions, creating some intentions around, you know, non-harming, and then seeing how that affects the rest of our days, the rest of our lives, and our minds. This is kind of what's talked about in this living in the first basket with ethical integrity. So even just, you know, and this is the thing that I love about Buddhism and I love about this practice is you can have an intention to do no harm and still cause harm to self or others, but with reflection, then you know, hopefully the next, you still set the intention, and you can, and anytime that you, and even like, you know, say you act, you know, like I was saying earlier, reactive, you're reactive in some way, you know, this happens, it hasn't happened as much lately, but when I first moved to LA, it was happening a lot driving, right? I was super reactive because there was so many drivers that didn't have my best interest in mind, is what I felt. And so I was very reactive. But even then becoming aware, oh wow, I'm so reactive around this thing. And then I can shift it back to, oh, what's my intention? Okay, to not be as reactive. All right, what could I do to not be as reactive in this moment? Well, I could take a breath, I can drop my shoulders, I can soften my belly, you know, just kind of to, so then again, applying some intervention. So this is just one way to kind of look at it, right? So yeah, so experimenting, you know, maybe even like setting intentions around food, you know, around like either way, maybe it's, you know, sometimes people will go all day and they're just busy, and they forget to eat. Right. So setting an intention around kind of eating, you know, kind of every couple hours or something like that, which can actually be a built-in pause. Now, how often do we actually do that through our days? You know, are we like pausing to eat? Usually we're doing something else, especially if it's a work day, you know, or we're studying or something, you know. So setting those kind of intentions, right? Setting intentions around kind of interaction with devices, you know. This is something that I've played with. I haven't done it in a while, but I've played with it. This idea of like taking a day off all devices, you know, like a Sunday, like a Sabbath, right? Actually turning the phone off for a day. Sometimes people are like, what? Turning it off? Or not turning on the TV. You know, we were talking about how, you know, after a meditation retreat, like I just didn't want to turn the TV on for a few days. Just didn't have a desire to. You know, so kind of playing with that kind of intention as well. And I really like to watch some TV. I like to binge on some Netflix. Not really Netflix because it's not that great stuff on Netflix anymore, but more like Apple TV and, you know, Prime. Just to get real. But anyway, so working with intentions in some of those ways, yeah. What else do I got here? The Buddha explained that right intention is threefold. That the intention of renunciation, the intention of goodwill, and the intention of harmlessness. And these are kind of the three aspects. And this is kind of what I've been pointing to, right? So renunciation is, when we're feeling the kind of the greed, the pull, that kind of strong desire, especially if it's going to help with distraction, or seeking of some kind of pleasurable experience. So learning to kind of renounce, like putting the phone down, or not watching TV, or I don't know, not indulging in alcohol or drugs, or not indulging in foods late at night, or something, whatever it is, not indulging in things that might actually cause you harm or others harm. This is one of the aspects of renunciation. And then the intention of goodwill. This is, kind of like what I was saying about the driving piece. Like, can I try to cultivate a non-reactive way of being in the world? And even if I fall short of that intention, that's the other thing. It's not like a commandment, and if you break it, you've sinned and you're going to hell, or you have to go to confession or anything like that. You just begin again. Believe me, I would not still be doing this if it was a one and done. This is a process. And there's a lot of forgiveness and kindness and compassion infused in this practice. And it's so important to recognize that, because we're so fucking judgmental and we're so hard on ourselves. And part of it is because we have this very strong kind of dualist, like you're either good or you're bad. You're a sinner or you're a saint, And we can't help it. It's part of our Western, concept, self-concept. But to soften the edges of that is really what this practice is helping us to do, to have an intention to do that. That could be part of it, part of the intention. Oh, I have an intention to generate kind of goodwill towards myself and others. I have an intention to, blur the lines of black and white, of, completely binary ways of thinking. Right. And then the intention of harmlessness, And this is something like, I feel like the most important thing here is it's not actually about not being harmful to others. It's really about not being harmful to ourselves, like setting a really clear intention to not cause harm to ourselves, to our own minds, to our own bodies, and just start there. And I have a strong belief that, and some faith that if we actually do that, it will just permeate outward. If I love myself, we've all heard this. If I love myself and treat myself with kindness and goodwill, of course that's going to permeate out. And I'm going to avoid the people that I feel like don't honor that. If I feel like, oh, I'm treating myself with kindness and goodwill, and then there's someone in my life, my boss, or, whatever, a relationship, or a family member, who's not honoring that and not seeing that and not reflecting that, well, then I'm probably going to distance myself from that person, or, friends. And so these aspects of intention, there are three kind of opposing parallel kinds of wrong intention. So this is useful to kind of look at. So intention governed by desire. So if I'm only setting out for the intention to fulfill my desire, right? My whether we're calling it addictive or whether we're calling it kind of consuming or whether we're calling it pleasure seeking, if it's just about gratifying desire, then that's considered wrong intention from the Buddhist perspective, and the intention governed by ill will. So if I have an intention to do the opposite, cause harm or harbor resentments, then that's going to lead to negative results. And then the last one, intention governed by harmfulness, right? So obviously setting out. So this is, just the opposite of what's considered wise intention. So this group of teachings comes up a lot, and I guess I'm just gonna kind of talk about them because around intention. So the Buddha had several insights before his awakening, before his complete liberation from suffering. And I think they're kind of called the 4 watches of the night. They're like the final evening of his of awakening. He kind of had these boom, 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 successive kind of insights, and he's talking about them later to some of his disciples. And one of his first insights was to begin to see skillful and unskillful states of mind. So he had concentrated his mind. He was mindful of the mind and the way in which I was instructing you, and is common in this style of meditation, to begin to kind of discern, oh, I followed that train of thought before, and it just doesn't lead to anything good, right? It just increases the anxiety, it increases the despair, it increases the, kind of covetousness, or whatever it is that's considered unskillful. And then seeing or feeding the wholesome or skillful states of mind, and then seeing where they lead to. Oh, these lead to bright results. These lead to less suffering, less attachment. And so this was one of the first kind of real clear, strong insights that the Buddha talks about having. And so he calls them kusala, akusala. So kusala is, let's see, the 3 poisons. Okay, so kusala is wholesome or skillful, and akusala is unwholesome or unskillful. And so he kind of breaks them down as akusala, the 10 unwholesome courses of action or deeds which originate from the 3 poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion. And so these are killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, slander, lying, harsh speech, useless talk, covetousness, ill will, and false views. So this is what's considered the 10 kind of things that if we're feeding, they're just leading us farther away from the peace and ease that we want to kind of dwell in, And then so the contrary, right, there's the 10 deeds which spring from the virtuous qualities, detachment, goodwill, and wisdom, right? And what are these? They are generosity, or what can be considered skillful or wholesome karma, right? Generosity, morality, meditation, reverence, service, transference of merit, rejoicing in the good deeds of others, and hearing the Dharma, expounding the Dharma, and straightening out one's views. So these are considered kind of setting the intention for goodwill, for renunciation, for harmlessness. We are then going to cultivate more skillful actions. So I feel like hopefully that seemed coherent and was helpful. I'm happy to kind of open up for any last kind of questions. If there's any thoughts?
What was the name of that book you talked about at the beginning? The codification of all of this.
Oh, it's called the Vasuddhimagga. Yeah, it's like you could it's actually spelled just, I mean, it's spelled, I can probably spell it out for you if you come up after. But yeah, the author is Buddhaghosa. So Buddhaghosa, you know, we're talking like probably what, 13th century, 10th century, something like that. And it's kind of held, I've actually been thinking about going back to study it again. I studied through it when I was doing my formal teacher training and, you know, years ago. But I was thinking about going back to it and really kind of pulling some teachings directly from it. It's called the Vasuddhimagga. It's interesting, yeah. It's interesting in the way that Buddhist scholars and scholarly writing is interesting, which is it's usually pretty bland and repetitive and a little bit dry. So you know you have to really be into it, you know. There's some good translations and retranslations, you know.
What were the three intentions again? Like goodwill, harmlessness.
So renunciation. So if our intentions are in the line with renunciation, so this is kind of seeing, you know, the wisdom in like, you know, like you were just on retreat, right? Do you now see the wisdom of not making eye contact or renouncing communicating with people? Do you see how that could have been more beneficial for you to do that?
Yeah.
So it's kind of seeing the wisdom of renunciation to whatever degree, seeing the wisdom or setting the intention to see the wisdom of goodwill, and see the wisdom of setting the intention around harmlessness. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's end it there. Thank you all for your time and attention. Please know that the center is run completely on the donation of those who attend, and there's a bowl and there's a QR code on the bowl. You can donate directly to the center. There's obviously a bowl there. Also, you can put cash in there if you'd like. It helps us keeps the doors open and the lights on. Yeah, you can Venmo me if you want to at Jason Murphy or No BS Buddhist with no spaces. It's just No BS Buddhist on Venmo. Also PayPal. And yeah, I mean, I'm, you know, anyway, that's enough for now. There's more things happening. I'm like trying to update my website, and I'm looking at doing some workshops or things like that, like a day long or half days, that kind of stuff. But probably not till next year. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. Oh, you can also follow me on Instagram if you want to hear little tidbits of stuff that I say, or you can show up. May any goodness that has been gained from our time together, may this goodness be dedicated to the freedom from suffering for all beings. May we all be free.